Hi, my name is Tal, a sales application engineer at Munters. The Platinum family controllers is a very flexible system that was designed over the years in order to cater to all kinds of farms and ventilation applications. Platinum has many features and possibilities. These features can also be fine-tuned by the system parameters, which enables each grower to customize the system according to their need. In this video, we have gathered some of the key parameters which every grower should know. There are many other parameters which you can read about in our user manual. So let's get started. The first parameter we'll talk about today is the temperature curve offset. There are many occasions in which the grower wants to change the target temperature just a little bit. It could be an unusually hot day or a cold day, or a flock that doesn't grow as expected. For these exact cases, we came up with the temperature curve offset. This parameter enables the user to change the entire temperature curve table, including target, heat, and tunnel, and also alarm values. For example, if I set -1 for this parameter, the entire temperature table will decrease by 1 degree. Navigating back to the main screen shows us we have an offset to the target. We can also access this offset from the main screen by pressing Enter and arrow keys up-down simultaneously. Reminders are very important. Say your Platinum controller is connected to manually adjusted backup thermostats. What happens when the temperature curve automatically goes down during the growth cycle? The short answer is you'll need to adjust the thermostats manually. The longer answer is Platinum can remind you to adjust the thermostats so that they are in sync with the controller's temperature curve. How do we do that? If you set a reminder to 2 degrees, a pop-up appears every time the target temperature goes down 2 degrees, reminding you to adjust the backup thermostats. A simple example. I set a reminder to 2 degrees. The temperature curve starts at 33 degrees. When the temperature reaches 31 degrees, a reminder pops up, alerting you to readjust the backup thermostat settings. This pop-up will also appear on the PC software. Acknowledge the reminder, and the same pop-up appears when the temperature curve reaches 29 degrees, and so on, so forth. Anyone wanting to upgrade his thermostats and install a system where the thermostats adjust themselves automatically, check out our website for RDT5, which is our 5-stage digital thermostat. Let's talk about when the minimum ventilation drops to minimum. As you know from the precision videos, whenever the heaters kick in, the levels of ventilation reduces to minimum. This reduction occurs when the overall average of the house reaches heat temperature, or when a specific zone heats the heating temperature. This parameter defines when ventilation goes to minimum. By default, this parameter is by the house average. However, if you grow in a cold climate, or the house temperatures are not even throughout the structure, you can try the zone option, which will reduce the ventilation to minimum if just some of the house heaters are activated. It is extremely important to make sure that changes in your ventilation are done carefully. Imagine you are in a car and your leg is on the gas pedal. In the distance you see an obstacle. What is the first thing you do? Take your leg off the gas. That's cool down factor. The objective of the cool down factor parameter is to delay the levels from increasing when the temperature is decreasing but is still above target, in order to prevent overshooting below target. The default for the cool down factor is 15%. Above target temperature, the controller increases levels to cool down the house. But what if the temperature is already decreasing towards target? If temperature is decreasing by 15% of the distance between the current temperature and the target in 1 minute, the controller will delay the increase of levels. The default for the cooldown factor is quite good, But if you have situations where in the evening temperature reduces very rapidly and you see that there is an overshoot in which temperatures go below target before adjusting back, then you should consider reducing this parameter to 12 or 10%. In the previous parameter, we had a delay of level increase. This parameter is for more severe situations, where there is a need not only to delay the increase, but to actually decrease levels, even when above target. Going back to the car analogy, after you took your leg off the gas, the next step is to pump the brakes. That is cool down fast response. Again, the goal is to prevent overshooting below target. The default for this parameter is 1.7 degrees Celsius. If the temperature drops by more than 1.7 degrees per minute, the controller will reduce a level. You can see this very clearly when using our trainer unit. If you reduce the temperatures very rapidly, you will see the levels decrease almost instantly to the minimum. Up until now, we spoke about changes in temperature and how to protect your ventilation. Now let's talk about pressure changes. The objective of the wind gust delay parameter is to avoid the unnecessary movement of inlets in case of sudden pressure changes. A simple example: someone opens the door to the house and pressure drops. There is no need for the inlets to move in the situation because the door will be closed in a few seconds. This parameter gives us a 10-second delay for these situations exactly. Another issue to deal with is when your inlets can't provide any more air. Selecting yes for this parameter automatically opens the tunnel doors to adjust pressure when the inlets have no more air capacity, meaning the inlets are at 100% open and pressure is still high. In other words, automatically start transitional ventilation. Let's talk some more about ventilation. Increased delay time determines the amount of time the controller will wait before increasing ventilation when the temperature goes above happy zone. The default for this parameter is 180 seconds. It is a bit long, but is designed in order to protect young animals from being exposed to too much air. As the animals grow, this parameter should be shortened. We recommend setting it to 90 seconds throughout the flock. You should never go below 30 or 40 seconds, because that is just too short for any temperature to stabilize in the house and will result in excessive level movement, and even heaters turning on unnecessarily. The decreased level delay will determine the amount of time the controller will wait before decreasing ventilation. When temperature goes below target. The default for this parameter is 60 seconds and was also designed in order to protect young animals. As the animals grow older, this parameter should be a bit longer. We recommend setting it to 90 seconds throughout the growth period. You should never go below 30 or 40 seconds because that is just too short for any temperature to stabilize in the house and will result in excessive level movement. The fan cycle time makes life just a little bit easier when defining the levels of ventilation. It makes Platinum do some of the work for you. If I set this parameter to 0, I have two columns in the levels of ventilation, on and off. These will determine my minimum ventilation cycle for each level. But when I set any value for this parameter, for example 300 seconds, you can see that now the off column disappeared. Now the controller will automatically create a 300-second cycle according to what I set in the on column. In short, Platinum now does half of the work. In this example, the on is 30 seconds, and so the cycle is 30 seconds on and 270 seconds off. The last thing we're going to talk about is how to get your curtains or inlets to open and close properly and make sure that the calibration will not harm the growth. Platinum controllers have an option to automatically calibrate any curtain or inlet. The calibration process is simply opening or closing the inlet to ensure that the controller and the inlet itself are in sync. By default, the controller will open the inlet or curtain all the way to 100% and hold it there for a third more of the opening time, and then return to the original location. So if the curtain or inlet opening time is 100 seconds, the calibration will be 133 seconds, just to make sure that the inlet actually opened all the way. But what if it's cold outside? In order to make sure that the calibration process is controlled, we have added a few parameters that will ensure that the animals are not harmed as a result of calibration. The first parameter is from to time. Only within this time frame is calibration enabled. Proximity to edge. This determines when the calibration is done only by closing the curtain. The default for this is 10%. So if the inlet is at 10% opening or less, the controller will calibrate it by closing and not opening, simply because it's closer. Close below this outside temperature. If the outside temperature is less than this parameter, which means it's cold, the controller will calibrate the inlets by closing to ensure that the house doesn't cool down while calibrating. Thank you for watching, and we hope you tune in for more videos.